feels like it's been so long since we've been here. I frankly didn't know what to do with my time, but I think I can say that I am officially addicted to knitting. I've with a little bit of extra time, I picked up a hobby, I guess you could say.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
Yeah, well, I've got some things to show. If I made this hat.
It's a really nice hat.
And I made you this sweater.
Really?
Now, if it's too big, we can throw it in the wash.
That's nice, man.
Shrink it a bit.
I'm not very cold right now, but
And made this. Now I think this could be like behind a chair, behind your head on a chair, maybe like a flag or even like a shawl.
Yeah, that's sweet, man. That's a ship.
What have you been up to?
I've just been chilling, man. Straight chilling.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Doing good.
I'm doing good. You're doing real good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't need it. I mean, of
Chewing
course,
on-
I don't need it. This gum. Yeah, this
Chewing
gum.
on
I don't
gum,
need
yeah.
this gum. Yeah.
Everything's been fine.
Yeah, dude. It's I
Been keeping
watched
busy,
a little.
or-
I saw a little of a hockey game. Hockey. It was there's the World Series, and that was cool too. I mean, that's a big thing. That's
most important. You're doing good though.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's fine. It's it's. Say what you want about the San Diego Chargers, but Mike McCarthy got his 100th win against them. Cheers to Big Mac.
Philip Rivers, Phoenix, Arizona Cardinals, Cardinal Rule. Was hoping you'd take that.
Shit, man.
Ruler, Slick Rick the Ruler. Good rap albums.
How many times are you ever going to say, well, Philip Rivers, man, outplayed Aaron Rodgers?
I would think that's
Holy
safe to say.
Fuck, man. That's
Yeah.
nuts. Dude was playing mad, man. It was like somebody called the football a squeezy, if you happen to catch the Packers slang podcast leading up to that game. That shit was fucking hilarious, man. Check out packerslang.com. Can't get enough of that shit, man. But for real, Philip came out slinging guns. That patchwork O-line kind of forced them to just do those quick shots. And,
It was, yeah.
Man, he diced us 65 passes.
Did
That's
not waste any time.
absurd.
Yeah. After Rodgers has been talking about amount of snaps you're getting, amount of offensive plays just dropping again. It's not getting things, and they exploded.
James Starks also exploded.
Yeah.
And Jeff Janis got in a little bit, man.
Improving a little bit.
He actually had a very good block on that big James Starks touchdown run. He had the one that just kind of spoofed him in. Yeah. So, man, it wasn't pretty. The hits kept coming, man, and for Ty Montgomery to get dinged up, and man, that was very, very tough on our defense, and they held on just long enough. And give it up for the kid Randall for making that final play when it was needed. Cool, man, but we are undefeated.
Yes, it feels good, and going into the bye week feels good now. We got a lot of guys. Rest them up, and we'll see how it all shakes out and everything. And
learned a little bit more about the bottom of the roster these last couple weeks, but getting some guys back. And with that, we've got a guest back on the show. We've got blogger extraordinaire Scott McKenna, live from Denver, previewing the Broncos game.
Scott McKenna. Scott, what is up out in Denver?
Life is grand, man. Life is grand. Full of good things when the Packers are coming to my crib at 6-0.
That's too cool. You're saying you already see a bunch of fans around town, a lot of Packer fans invading?
It's really cool. It was only Wednesday, and you definitely saw the Packer memorabilia, paraphernalia or gear running around town, and the 16th Street Mall definitely was supporting its G's, and it's cool. And you can only imagine that as it gets closer to Sunday, you're going to continue to see more and more. And the state that I like to think of as Wisconsin on steroids. So it should be a really, really sublime weekend, no doubt about it.
So when you say Wisconsin on steroids, is that is that for sports too? Like, is there a big sports fan base out there?
Sports, I mean, there are, from what I understand, there's more professional sports teams in Denver than in any other city in America. It's really a sports-driven town. The people get all hopped up on their sports, and really, I think the people in the state of Colorado are very similar to the people of Wisconsin, just really good folk, and the vibes of the characters, I think, are very similar, and that's why you see a lot of transplants from Wisconsin out to Colorado. But there's no doubt about it that the city of Denver is a real sports-driven town, and people love their Bronco football. There's no question about it.
And you've been living there for how long now?
I moved here in January of 2011, so just shy of 5 years.
Okay, so you've gotten a chance to kind of absorb the vibes of the Broncos faithful. Are they a kind fan base? Packer fans definitely, if they're coming to the stadium, definitely should be crunked up, no doubt about it. But there's you also have to be careful, because they're not gonna. There's an interesting crowd there. There's like the old Western style cowboy that's not afraid to put his finger in your face, and then you also get the sort of this youth movement that we've got here in the state, with more of a blend of left-wing nature with real social socially accepting in a wide variety of ways, if you will, that will probably be more gentle, and but they'll not be afraid to say something that is could come across potentially the wrong way if you received it wrong, but it'll likely be said with a smile. But they can certainly intimidate the opposing crowd, or the opposing fan base, and aren't going to be afraid to be vocal in front of you.
Are you going to be a member of that opposing fan base at Mile High this weekend? And what is Mile High like, just as stadium experience in general?
There's no way I would ever miss this game. I will absolutely be in attendance. My brother's going to be heading up from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we're going to take the game in together. Couldn't be more stoked for it. But the Broncos put on a great game day experience, and again, for anybody that's going to be attending that hasn't been to a game out here, I strongly urge you to get into the stadium roughly 45 minutes before the game. They do one of the flyovers that, of course, we see at Lambeau, but they've also, on occasion, will do have parachuters drop into the stadium. They've got this cool Bronco horse that comes running out, and they do the fireworks, and they really make it an exciting introduction, and the stadium is undoubtedly going to be electric. There's the fan base is real strong. They're loud. They're passionate. They're extremely vocal. And then additionally, they're pulling out the jerseys that they wore in the '97 Super Bowl to make it known, and that in their minds history will repeat itself, and they're going to actually have a tribute to the '97 team. And they're going to be, I believe, retiring the name of Pat Bowen, so the old owner. So it's they're going to make it a real festive environment. It'll be a celebration of sorts, and it's a unique game to be able to have an AFC team playing an NFC team, both at 6-0, and much as we saw the hype last year in Green Bay when we saw Rodgers taking on Brady, which just doesn't happen often. Well, this will only be the second time that Rodgers will take on Manning, and the last time was obviously in 2008 when Peyton came to town as a member of the Colts. But so there's a lot of uniqueness, and I think it's going to be a real cool event. But we also have to remember that it's week 8. So there's a lot of football to be played, and this is just one game in a lengthy 16-game season.
So the vibe around town, then, if they're building this up to kind of be a bit of a '97 throwback, I assume there's a lot for fans of both teams to get really excited about for this game. The fans in Denver and the pundits on sports radio and whatnot, are they pretty confident coming out of this bye that they're going to stay undefeated?
It's very mixed. I will say that the radio and the media is very, very confident that the Broncos are going to come away victorious. They're looking at this game as though the Broncos had the bye to work on some things. They're begging for a guy by the name of Cody Lattimore to get an opportunity, and he's kind of like, you hear a bunch of Packer fans and some media members begging for more Jeff Janis. That's kind of what Cody Lattimore is about for them. Maybe a third wide receiver option, a bigger guy, extend the field, and then move Sanders into the slot. So the fan base really is less optimistic than the media. The fan base here is looking at this thing as maybe the Packers are the better team, and they're almost afraid to get their hopes up for not just this game but this season. And they've almost been joking that, hey, we're 6-0, but we haven't played very good football offensively, and maybe if we can beat a team that is of the caliber of the Packers, that maybe they can start thinking of themselves as a team that's a potential contender, which at this point, frankly, the fan base doesn't necessarily see themselves that way, at least those that I communicate with. But it's interesting,
Scott, you are one of the best studied Packers fans I know. I mean, your level of dedication and your passion for covering this team is just unparalleled for someone who doesn't do it for a living. I mean, I have all the respect in the world for you as a Packers fan, so I've got to apologize. I've got all these questions about just Denver. I know you don't follow Denver nearly as closely, but as you do the Packers, but just kind of being in town and absorbing a lot of media, just kind of secondhand. Do you feel like this is a Denver team that's really built to go all the way this year, or is the 6-0 kind of, did they kind of get off to a lucky start?
The defense wins championships, and the Denver Broncos have won football games with defense, and they've had an absolute penchant for making big plays, and not just big plays that get them off the field, big plays that put points on the board. And they're doing that at a rate that I think is unparalleled in the league. And they're consistently making game-changing plays. And additionally, as much flack as the Broncos' offense is receiving this year, what people aren't looking at is when Peyton Manning has needed to put points on the board, Peyton Manning has moved the football and scored points. And he's had to do that in nearly every game this year. They've had a lot of nail-biters, and in a lot of the games, Manning has generated points on by leading long drives. Some of them were just required a field goal, like when they played Minnesota. But, you look at the Kansas City game, which was a nationally televised game, I believe a Thursday night game. They were down 7 points with under 2 minutes left, and I want to say he engineered like an 80-yard drive or something close to that, and scored a touchdown right at the end of it with like 30 seconds left. And last week after trailing 20-16 with roughly 8 minutes to play, he torched Trevon Williams on a 75-yard touchdown to Emmanuel Sanders. So he's really done what it's taken to put his team in a position to win the football game at the end of the game. Now, it's not the Peyton Manning that we're used to seeing in previous years. He's mistake prone, which is not what we're accustomed to out of a guy who who arguably is the greatest regular season quarterback of all time. But the Broncos right now need to get their offensive line figured out. The interior of their offensive line is just it's been sieve-like at times, and it really, that when I look at this week in particular, one of the things that gives me great excitement if a guy like, BJ Raji can play is that you get Raji and Daniels and you start sending Matthews on those inside blitzes and Manning can't get off his spot. So you know where he's going to be. And the Packers have had great success with that interior rush. And if Capers comes out calling those and he's aggressive and we're winning our one-on-one battles, we could see some extensive pressure on Manning and maybe multiple sacks because of it.
Yeah, I wonder if you can elaborate for a second on the Broncos offensive line, because it's just been something throughout the course of this year looked at, and we faced some, graded wise from what we've gathered, some subpar, on the lower end of the spectrum offensive line units with varying degrees of success. I mean, Chargers did what they were able to do, but what do you kind of think of, where they're at? Has it been injuries or just underperforming, or?
Well, the Broncos had some tough decisions to make with regards to the salary cap this offseason. And one of the places that they did not invest and they actually had to let some people go was on the offensive line. And then they had an injury, and because of it, all of a sudden they've got, Evan Mathis, the guy that the Eagles cast off. They picked him up as a guard. They did have a second-round pick that they've got starting at tackle. But they got Vasquez at guard, who's a journeyman, and they've got I think his name is Ryan Harris at right tackle, and he too is somewhat of a journeyman. So they've got guys who can be beat. They don't get a great push in the run game, even though the last couple of weeks they've had some success against the Browns and the Vikings as well. Where they've had some big plays, and in the Browns game in overtime, they really established a run game to seal it and to get themselves into field goal range. But they just have been they haven't been fleet of foot. They've been pushed around a bit, and because of it, since the Broncos have been using Manning largely out of center earlier in the year and not out of his customary shotgun position, Manning's had his back to the field, which isn't what he's used to. And the Broncos' offensive line hasn't been able to anchor. And as the defensive line is pushing them back an extra foot or two, well, with where Manning's mobility is right now, that makes all the difference in the world. So really, the Broncos' offensive line has been arguably, in my opinion, its greatest weakness on the team. And it should be a battle that the Packers win this weekend, I would think.
So, Scott, the last time that we chatted with you, it was previewing the 2015 draft, which, thank you again, that was great, and it, put the spotlight on a couple of guys who are around the league now. It's been kind of fun to watch them try their hand in the big leagues. But as far as the guys that the Packers drafted this year, you pretty pleased with what you're seeing out of the rookies?
I mean, you really have to be. You look at Randall making the big play this past weekend, the week before, or this past game, I should say. The week before that, you had Rollins making the big play. Where would the Packers be without Ty Montgomery? I mean, he has been just such a stud, and it's really Montgomery has been such, in my opinion, just an ultimate difference maker and a savior for the way that I think we can really create mismatches, and we saw it just a little bit when on the Seattle game, and I wrote about it extensively post the Seattle game. But Ty Montgomery was an absolute superstar, in my opinion, on the big drive that I think it was an 8-minute drive that really sealed the game for the Packers. And when they put both Cobb and Montgomery in the backfield, or they go, empty sets with both of them there, they almost give you a mismatch that we just haven't seen anywhere in the league. And it's a guy that's a wide receiver that could two guys that could easily play running back on occasion, but that they're also wide receivers. And it'd almost be like having, Percy Harvin and another guy like that. But it could lead to something really special and I'm concerned about Montgomery's injury. Don't know what the status is going to be, but if we were able to get him back, and you get a healthy Adams, and maybe it can occasionally get Janis involved on the deep ball. Well, I think that this offense could really evolve into something that would be really special. Additionally, I'd like to think that if Jake Ryan can stay healthy, you're going to see him utilized in some defensive packages. And if you look at, I'm a big Joe Thomas fan. I was disappointed that he got released early in the year. Was really excited that he got back. Thomas has put himself in position to make a lot of plays. He hasn't always finished it. In fact, last week I thought he had a big chance to make a crucial sack, I believe, on a third down. I keep saying last week, the last game against the Chargers, and he didn't finish the play. And Rivers ended up throwing a beauty of a ball and got him right into field goal range where Thomas could have knocked him out of field goal range. And I think that Ryan, and when he gets his hands on people, from what we've seen, throughout his college career, most certainly, but then as a member of the Packers in the preseason, then on special teams on occasion, and in the regular season, when he's wrapped up somebody, they're coming down. And he, at the college level, Ryan was really the type of player that could come off the edge. He came on a number of blitzes up the inside, and he was an impactful player there. So I think that his skills would really translate well to standing next to Clay Matthews and coming on if they're in a package that has 2 middle linebackers and 3 down linemen. You might be able to have both of them coming on stunts and adding extreme confusion for a quarterback and potentially creating some big plays there. But so I don't think we've seen the best of Jake Ryan for what we're going to see for the remainder of the year.
And you talk about the Montgomery injury. What do you think about some of the people with the trade deadline coming up, asking, got like a Steve Smith or Anquan Bolden on their wish list? Do you think, barring future injuries, we could get it done with the guys that we have? Jordy being out, that was a big loss, and James Jones was a killer pickup in retrospect. But do you think would you be tempted by one of those kind of veterans who's really kind of on a team that's going nowhere this year? Would you pull the Andre Rison switch?
The biggest thing about the Andre Rison switch is it came at a time where we were in desperate need. Not only we were down to basically Terry Mickens and Don Beebe and Derek Mays as our wide receivers at that time. We had lost. Everybody talks about us losing, Robert Brooks, but people forget that we were without Antonio Freeman, and Chamorro was hurt, I believe, at the time as well. And we were thin, so it was like a potentially season-saving signing was Rison. We're not in that situation. We're not in that situation right now. And while I think Steve Smith is one of the great wide receivers of the modern era, I'm not absolutely positive that we need to go out and get somebody like that. I would not go after a guy like Bolden. I would not. And personally, I wouldn't go after a guy like Steve Smith. The Packers have been banged up, and you're playing without. Cobb is not himself. You're playing without Devontae Adams. Now Montgomery is hurt, but it's not to the point where we're in a desperate fashion. We're 6-0. We're playing very, very good football. And I don't think you can just sign a guy off the street who hasn't been in your off-season program and have him step in and be the same Steve Smith that we're watching with the Baltimore Ravens each and every week. I don't think he comes in and is that guy. So I personally think that the Packers should hold as they are and continue to develop their youth as they've always done. And Devontae Adams worked his entire offseason to get himself to this spot. And now he's got his wish, and it's time for him to step up. And as I said earlier, I really think that this offense is going to evolve as the season goes along, and we're going to continue to see a wide variety of packages that include the likes of Montgomery and Cobb in the backfield at the same time.
I think they're not that they necessarily wanted it, but I could see this offense evolving. It's only because of the knowledge that they're gathering by having to plug these guys in and trying to come up with these new packages shorthanded. And I guess, and they're looking at it now with Starks being out, didn't practice again today, and Corliss being out. And you talked at length on your blog about how Corliss affects the run game. But let's talk about the beast back there himself, Eddie.
Do you buy into this? Any of this concern about his conditioning or anything? I personally don't. When his numbers of carries were compared to last year, he's ballpark of where he was.
How do you feel about Eddie Lacy this season? What's your take, Scott?
It's you can't deny that he's overweight. I mean, he just doesn't look like himself. I don't think. But Eddie Lacy is it feels like every year people have wondered who Eddie Lacy is early in the season, where I remember his rookie year, he fumbled against San Francisco and he had the concussion and then he missed the game, and everybody was just like in an absolute panic mode about who Eddie Lacy was and who was this guy we drafted in the second round and why didn't we trade up to get Monte Ball, right? Like that's what everybody was saying. And or was it draft Monte Ball? I forget how that one went back and forth. But it's and then the next year he got off to a really slow start. And the same thing has happened this year. Eddie Lacy is a mutter. He's a cold weather guy. He was the old business decisions conversation that we've heard people talk about before, is that when you're going to make contact with Eddie Lacy, you have to make business decisions. How do you want to stick your neck in there? Because Lacy's going to be coming with a beastly confidence. From my eye, Lacy looks like he's at this stage running with less confidence. And he looks like he's lost a little bit of his mojo. He's not seeing the field as well. He doesn't have as big of a burst. Am I concerned? I'm not. Let's face the facts. When a guy that's built like Lacy has a little bit of an ankle injury, and you continue to eat the same style of food that you were eating when you were working out as much, and regardless as to what's been publicly reported, I can only fancy that he just has not been working out or training and conditioning in season as he normally does, and then in games he hasn't been as active as he normally is. So there's something that's happened there that isn't being portrayed to the fan base, in my opinion, and I think his mojo just hasn't appeared to be the same. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, the Packers aren't going to receive the ultimate glory of Super Bowl 50 without Eddie Lacy being a peak performer. And the Packers are 6-0, but the Packers' offense has not been the offense that we know and love. I think they may have had 4 3-and-outs last week. Or against San Diego. That's not the Green Bay Packers, but it's that way because we're missing that 5 to 8 yard play, which is usually Lacy gutting it out right up or taking it right up the gut. And I don't think that you can doubt that he doesn't look like himself, but I do think that as the season goes along, he's going to find his stride. And as the weather continues to turn, Eddie Lacy is going to be counted on as an integral part of the 2015 Green Bay Packers.
Looking at another offensive player, throughout this early part of the season, what have you thought of Bakhtiari's performance, and what does he have ahead of him with this Broncos front?
Boy, this Broncos defense, they put pressure. And it's not just Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, but when they bring Marshall or they bring Trevathan or Derek Wolfe, getting his push and Sylvester Williams and Malik Jackson and Shaq Barrett, he made the 2 huge plays against the Browns, late in that game. I mean, they just rotate guys in and. They just lost Shane Ray, who was their first round pick for the. I'm not positive it's for the season or not, but it was a fairly significant injury, and Bakhtiari has a big test ahead of him this week, and might ultimately be. You can make an argument that between Bakhtiari and Bulaga, they could be the 2 defining players for how this game turns out. We need to be able to protect Rodgers and to not let those two guys control the line of scrimmage as they so often do. And but Bakhtiari, I think, has had a really, really good year. The Packers have been in a difficult situation because of all the injuries, and I think offensively they've been very, very predictable at times, and they've had to be based on the core that they've been able to roll out onto the field, and so people have really been able to pin their ears back and take a real aggressive approach towards a guy like Bakhtiari, and I think Bakhtiari has manned up more often than not against some real stiff competition. And, that Seattle pass rush is no joke. And, you look at what the guys at the Bears are doing these days as far as pass rushing. They're getting home. And, Kansas City, those guys get to the quarterback. And he's done I think he's done a very admirable job. And I also wonder, remember he was hurt in the preseason. I wonder at what stage he became 100%, and if he is right now. And but it'll be an exciting day for Bakhtiari on Sunday, being able to come back to Colorado. He went to college in Boulder, and I fully expect Bakhtiari to man up and to have a big game for what will be a homecoming of sorts for him.
Well, we certainly hope that the week off, multiple weeks for some of these guys that they've sat, we really hope that the reinforcements are back en masse for this Denver game. So let's look ahead a little bit. It's just such an interesting situation, isn't it? With undefeated teams both getting the bye at the same time. McCarthy's got a pretty good record coming off of bye weeks. What do Denver fans think about Kubiak? And I guess they've got to be pleased with Wade Phillips, but what do they think about Kubiak?
It's everybody loves Wade Phillips, and Wade Phillips is just calling games with true glee right now. He's on cloud nine. There's no doubt about it. Kubiak people are concerned. They really think that they wish that Peyton would be given the offense back, and they've really made Peyton sort of change his identity this year after he'd been doing the same thing for, since he was drafted in 1998. He ran a similar offense ever since then. And when he came to Denver, he basically brought his offense here. And, Kubiak sort of drawn a line in the sand and put a hard foot down and said, this is the way we're going to do things. And it hasn't worked out the way that Kubiak would imagine, but or would like. But with that said, when you're 6-0, you're 6-0. And as I said earlier, the Broncos offense has made plays at the end of games when they've needed to make plays. And I think that the Broncos fan base is a fairly intelligent fan base, and they recognize that. But ultimately, they do not think with the current format of their offense and the current structure of their offense that they could be a contender for Super Bowl 50. And they know that this is the last year with Peyton, most likely. And they'd like Kubiak to give Manning the offense so that he can try to work his magic one last time.
Did Peyton lobby for John Fox at all out there, or is he not that kind of guy?
It was time for John Fox to go. The Denver Broncos team just seemed to lose heart, and it seemed to be an internal battle as to how the Broncos. Fox is a defensive guy, and he really wanted to get control of the offense. He thought that the offense was too much of a problem because they weren't moving the ball as efficiently as they had been earlier in the year, and he wanted to become a running team. And I would imagine, based on the body language that was portrayed, in public circles, that there was probably some discontent with between Fox and Manning, and maybe even a bigger scale. And it just seemed like the team sort of gave up on John Fox and lost a little bit of fight down the stretch last year.
Yeah, I mean that Super Bowl loss that they had must have been very disheartening for the team, for the fans. But and you also mentioned John Fox trying to commit to the run game. What is the Denver run game like this year? How would you assess that?
It has been a huge disappointment for Bronco fans. They've done well the last 2 weeks, but it has been a huge disappointment. C.J. Anderson just has not been able to get unleashed, and he too has battled some injuries, and he showed some success in the overtime against the Browns, but he has not had a great season by any stretch of the imagination. Ronnie Hillman's had a couple of real big plays, but they just haven't been getting winning the point of attack. The Broncos they're getting pushed backwards at the line of scrimmage, and because of it, there's been little to no hole to run through, which gives me good confidence heading into this weekend as well.
Okay. Well, I guess let's dip into this game a little bit. Now, like I said, I don't want to steal like some of your talking points for your upcoming blog, which I'm always look forward to. But you would say that you are confident going into this game as a Packers fan?
Yeah, I really think it's going to be a great test. And the beauty of Mike McCarthy teams is Mike McCarthy teams look a lot differently in December than they do in September. And he's always, and I repeat, always, with the exception of 2011, had a better team in December than he did in September. His teams always look better in December than they do in September. And generally, he does a lot of great, as he says, self-scouting or self-analysis throughout the bye week, and he sees holes or areas of improvement. He usually comes out with a couple of new designs. Now, I don't know what his new role in the as a coach instead of an offensive mind really behind the brains of the team, how much that's going to change things. But I really think one of the things that Packer fans will have to watch is between Darian Stewart and T.J. Ward, the Broncos have two superstar safeties that just don't get enough credit. But both those safeties crash hard in the run game. They oftentimes will play deep, and they come in attack mode for the run games, which, in my opinion, makes them real susceptible to the play action pass, and does open up the middle of the field if the Packers are willing to take a look at the middle of the field. I know that has oftentimes been against Aaron Rodgers' calling card, but with that said, I do think that the ball over the top could be open if the Packers can establish even a remote amount of run game early in the game. I do think that there will be a play action pass opportunity to be able to hit a big one deep over the top. It'll be interesting to see the way that Roby really guards Randall Cobb, what I imagine will be almost an exclusive matchup in the slot. Roby has been a much improved pro than what I thought he would be, or a much better pro than what I thought he would be. He's been tough, he's been physical, he's made plays on the ball, and the crazy thing is he is by far their third cornerback. They have two stud cornerbacks in Aqib Talib and Chris Harris, and Harris to me might be the most underappreciated cornerback in football. So the Broncos are deep and defensively, and even their players that they bring in off the bench, they make plays. And David Bruton has made multiple huge plays that have changed football games this year in the secondary, and he almost plays as though he's an undersized linebacker, a big safety, much in the mold that I think the Packers wished Sean Richardson could have fulfilled. But I think that the Packers win the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I really, really, really believe that there's going to be a big shot over the top. And I also imagine that the Packers are going to try to get guys open in the flat. Maybe it's going to be Cobb, and if Montgomery plays into the flat out of the backfield, don't be surprised if we see a little bit of that jumbo package with Perillo and Richard Rodgers and James Jones and Kuhn and Lacey, and they get the ball to Lacey in the flat. Because the Packers need to get a rhythm offensively. They need to move sticks, put together multiple first downs back to back to be able to establish some sort of rhythm and to get Rodgers' confidence back. And
I envision that happening, and I also think that this defense is going to make a big play or two, and it wouldn't surprise me if this defense puts points on the board. And I think we're going to spend a lot of time in the face of Peyton Manning, and it's funny because it's being billed as Manning versus Rodgers, but what this thing could be is a really unexpectedly low-scoring game where the Packers defense is the one that makes the big play that changes the outcome of the game. And as long as Aaron Rodgers protects the football and we do not turn the football over, I have a hard time believing the Packers are going to lose this Sunday.
Wow. Well, all right. Well, I mean, we haven't even done our predictions yet, and I know you like to give yours out there on the blog. I'm thinking like you. I'm thinking a low scoring game. Like I don't know if either team gets out of the teens necessarily in this one. Tommy, how are you feeling?
One quick other question. Just curious about the thing. How much credence or how much impact does the thin air up there really? I mean, like a guy like Eddie who actually suffers from asthma. Is that ever like really a problem, or can you acclimate and these guys are highly conditioned professionals who will adjust?
There is no doubt about it that the altitude makes an impact. And, I've had a number of friends come out here who are, fairly athletic or well-conditioned, and, I take them for fairly moderate hikes. And, winded. There's no doubt about it. So, hydration will be important, and the type of food you eat is very, very important. But hydration is the number one thing, and there's no doubt about it that I anticipate early in the game the Packers are going to be, especially on the defensive side of the football, the Packers are going to be rotating defensive linemen and making sure that they're fresh for the stretch. I would fancy that will happen at big fashion, and it'll be a very, very consistent rotation. And thankfully, as long as Raji and Perry are playing, the Packers are going to have great depth and health along that defensive line. So, yes, I would say unquestionably the altitude makes a difference, and it's a great addition to the home field advantage for the Broncos.
Sorry to divert from the point of discussion or point. So, I guess.
Did you have a chance to come up with a potential score yet, Scott?
I haven't finished my full analysis at this stage. If I were, on the spot right here to make a prediction, I'd say something in the range of 23 to 16 or 20 to 13, that type of game. But to go back to one point that I sort of mentioned earlier, I'm going to be very interested to see how the Broncos spread us out, and what are they going to use a double tight end stack with, where they're going to have Owen Daniels and Virgil Green, or are they going to put Lattimore and on the field? He's a big target. The press has talked a lot about him being a stud in practice, and if he's going to be on the outside with Demaryius Thomas on the other side, and Sanders is able to move into the slot, and Sanders has really become the key target for Peyton Manning, the most trusted target for Peyton Manning. And if that comes into the slot, the Packers have oftentimes had trouble there. And I'm going to be interested to see what happens there. I haven't fully, chewed on that one all the way through to put together my final analysis. But at this stage, I'd say something around the range of 23-16 or 20-13, but the Packers by 7 points.
Yeah, I like the idea of Manning versus Rodgers. It's a great headline, but I don't know. I don't think we're gonna see much. I'll give Rodgers a touchdown. I won't give Peyton any, and I think the high score for the Packers is going to be another Colorado graduate in Mason Crosby.
I like it.
I'll say 16-12.
it'd be a fun win for us to be able to win that way. And I guess my, a final point is that you mentioned the media. It is so unbelievable as to how people misperceive this year's version of the Green Bay Packers. We aren't that offensive juggernaut at this stage. They think we are. We're a defensive team that wins games with defense. And we made the big plays, the big play down the stretch in Chicago with Matthews' interception, and then we got off the field. We made they had the two big turnovers against Seattle. We gave up 3 points to San Francisco. You can say what you want about what happened. You look at the Rams game, and boy, that was all defense. And then you say what you want about the Packers giving up 503 passing yards, but sometimes you got to tip your hat to the competition. Philip Rivers was on fire, and the coverage there, in my opinion, was very, very good. And he was just getting rid of the ball so quick that we didn't have time to get any pressure on the quarterback. But when the defense needed to make a play, the Chargers had 3 possessions in the fourth quarter and came away with 3 points. And I don't care how many yards you put up. I care about the scoreboard. And this defense has made crucial plays, and each and every week it's kind of somebody different. It's been Randall, and last week it was Jones making a big play. You had the J-Ron Elliott. We've seen Clay Matthews. We've seen Peppers. We've seen Daniels, and at some point, and I wrote this in my blog the last couple of weeks, at some point Casey Hayward's going to have a crucial pick six that's going to be a fun love and dance down the sidelines. That'll happen real soon, I believe.
Sure hope so, man. It's really easy to like this 2015 team, isn't it?
It is, and I think that the best is yet to come, and I hope that we can continue to improve. Because there's too much frustration for my eye in the face of some of these players right now, and I think that we're a better team than the way we've played, and it's exciting because we're 6-0 at this stage.
And how do you think the game's going to turn out?
It sounds like the Broncos kicker has been getting a lot of work, and I think he will keep getting. So I'm going to say 22-28. I think we're going to get our production. I agree there. I don't know if it'll be Casey Hayward, but some more defensive points scored on our end. So.
Well, Scott, thank you so very much for breaking down the game. You rule, man. I hope you have a great time there on Sunday. You get loud for the Packer fans, all right?
Go Pack, go, man.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Take care.
Well, again, a big thank you to Scott McKenna over there. From what he does with the draft to him following the Packers and everything else, is just super cool insight from the guy. Super cool dude.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a pleasure to have a chat with him.
Very cool. Check out Scott on Twitter. Check out the Talking Smack blog. I mean, that's got to be the best pure Packers blog out there for no other video, audio, whatnot. That dude is great, man. He's got style. And we really appreciate him joining us. We appreciate you all joining us live from Stadium Drive, here with you for this wonderful 2015 season.
Getting back in it.
Back in the saddle again. So, if you like us, tell people about us. Tell people about OutsideSlant.com. Tell people about, tell people.
Just drop a line anywhere. Talk to your friends. Share about it over here. Don't talk to us. Put up rival opinions. Come up with,
Talk shit. Don't talk shit.
Just the whole shebang bang, it's a lot of fun, and
sure is.
And just looking forward to getting back on that train, keep moving forward.
We got a hell of a stretch coming here, Packers fans, and we are here to take you with it every step of the way.
Foot on the gas, looking straight ahead.
For Tommy Burns, I am Matty Day.
For Matty Day, I am Tommy Burns.
And reporting to you from the 59-yard line, we have been
live from Stadium Drive.
Yes!